Welcome to the Word for Life podcast, a daily devotional covering the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation.
The one thing that stands out in the last chapter of Ruth is about Boaz. Boaz is a decisive person. You see, in the previous chapter 3 verse 18, Naomi said this about Boaz to Ruth: "Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today." Did you notice that word? The man will not rest until the matter is settled today. You see, when Ruth met Boaz in chapter 3 verse 12 and 13, he had told her that there was a guardian redeemer in the family who was more closely related than him. So he told Ruth, "In the morning I will ask him if he wants to be your guardian redeemer. If he is not willing, I will do it." Friends, Boaz promised Ruth that he will redeem her. Now he did not waste time. Chapter 4 shows how he immediately set about doing what he had promised. In verse 1 we read, Boaz went up to the town gate. Now a town gate was usually a large open space near the gate of the town. It actually served as the town courthouse where trials and administrative hearings were held. And verse 1 says, Boaz went there. And as he was sitting there, the guardian redeemer he had already mentioned just came along. You see, God in His providence brought that guardian redeemer there. And when the guardian redeemer came, verse 1 says, Boaz called him and made him sit there. Verse 2, Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, "Sit here," and they did so. Friends, it is sometimes easy to promise things to people, but extremely difficult to take the initiative. Sometimes we can be scared of how things may not work out. We can be apprehensive of calling people and talking to them. We may think they may not support us. We may expect failure. But it is always good to take the first few steps and see if God would provide. That is what Boaz did. In the previous chapter, Naomi and Ruth took the extreme step of directly meeting Boaz at night. Now, Boaz took the initiative with the elders of his town. As it turned out, Naomi's guardian redeemer was willing to buy the land but not marry Ruth, because he knew that according to the law of Moses, that if in the future Ruth would bear a son, then the ownership of that land will also go to that son. And also, the son to be born to Ruth will also have a part in this guardian redeemer's present possession. That is why in verse 6, it says, "At this the guardian redeemer said, 'Then I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself, I cannot do it.'" You see, Boaz wasted no time. He announced immediately in verse 9 and 10. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Chilion and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown." Friends, we can appreciate the swiftness with which Boaz acted. When we know things are right, and if we go through the right channels like Boaz did, and if we see things falling in place by the grace of God, then we too can overcome fear and apprehensions and do what we ought to do. In 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 and 8, Paul told Timothy, "For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. So, do not be ashamed of the testimony about our Lord or of me, his prisoner. Rather, join with me in suffering for the gospel by the power of God." You see, Boaz's decisive action led to a great chapter of his life. He married Ruth, they had a son, Naomi got a guardian redeemer, and best of all, Israel got a king ultimately. That is how the author ends the story. In verse 14 we read, "Then the women of Bethlehem said to Naomi, 'Praise be to the Lord who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel.'" And just as they said, in verse 17 we read, Ruth had a son, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David, the future king of Israel. Friends, all this was from the Lord. But no one thought Ruth or Naomi or Boaz would become part of Israel's history. You see, God had great plans for Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz. But here in this chapter, the author highlights the decisive action of Boaz. On May 31, 1792, William Carey preached in Nottingham, England. The sermon was based on the biblical passage of Isaiah 54, verse 2 and 3. It reads, "Enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your tent curtains wide, do not hold back, lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes, for you will spread out to the right and to the left. Your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities." Soon after this sermon, William Carey traveled to India as a missionary. He spent over 40 years translating the Bible. He founded schools and he advocated for social reform. Today, William Carey is known as the father of modern missions. In that sermon, which he preached in 1792 in England, William Carey had said, "Expect great things from God, attempt great things for God." Friends, whatever God has put in our hearts, may He also grant us the courage and wisdom to do what we need to do.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow for the next episode of the Word for Life podcast.